Good morning.
Good
Thank you for
morning.
joining us for the City of Los Angeles's 2023 to 2028 Assessment of Fair Housing Session on Aging. We are happy to have this discussion today, and we look forward to hearing from all of you. I am Nancy Tuamaquaboa with the Los Angeles Housing Department, and I'm also joined by another Housing Department staff person, so I will let him introduce himself.
Morning, everyone. This is Joel Montano, also with the Los Angeles Housing Department, and happy to be here this morning to hear the valuable input that you all will be sharing.
Thanks, Joe. We also have staff representing the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles, also known as HACLA, and I will let staff introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Ann Lynch from the Housing Authority. I work in the public housing side of the house. I'll be jumping off at some point, but then Patty Mendoza from our Section 8 side will be coming in also, so playing team tag. I also put in the chat the link to the HACLA website, our asset management division, who have our senior assisted housing portfolio. Most of those are project-based Section 8 buildings.
Thanks, Ann. I will now turn it over to Mosaic Community Planning, who is partnering with the Housing Department and with the Housing Authority in developing the city's 5-year assessment of fair housing plan. They will be facilitating our discussion today, and they will start with a presentation, and we'll go through the agenda. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Nancy. I'm Melissa Mayu with Mosaic Community Planning. I'll be doing a quick overview of what we're doing and then leading a discussion. And we have one other staff person with Mosaic on as well.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jessica Gay. I'm an associate planner with Mosaic. Happy to be here.
Thanks. And Jessica, you'll probably see some notes from her in the chat throughout the meeting. Since we have, I think, a pretty small group, it might be helpful to start if you all would like to take yourselves off mute and just share your name, and if there's an agency that you represent, if you would share that as well, that would be great.
I'll go. Good morning, everyone. My name is Crystal Gunn. I am with the Accessible Housing Program for the City of Los Angeles. We are a division of the Los Angeles Housing Department.
Thanks, Crystal.
I'll go next. I'm Laura Trejo, Aging and Disabilities Department, Los Angeles County. Happy to be here, and I'll pass it over to Kimberly.
Good morning. My name is Kimberly Madison, and I am also with the County of Los Angeles under Laura Trejo for the New Freedom Transportation programs.
Thank you.
I'm Molly Davies. I'm with Wise and Healthy Aging. Good morning, everyone.
Hi, I'll go next. I'm Mariela Freire Reyes. I'm with the City of Los Angeles Department of Aging, and I see 3 other me's, but that just tells me that my team is here, and I'm so grateful that they're joining us. So to the other 3 Marielas, hello.
And everybody, if you want to update your name, all you have to do is where your picture is there. If you push on the right top, there will be 3 little dots. If you push that and you go to rename, you can type your name on there and it'll change it. Hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. And if people wouldn't mind doing that, that would be great, so that we can have an accurate list of who we have with us today.
Good morning. Let me go next. I'm Solomon Shubashi with Los Angeles County Aging and Disabilities Department, Program Manager over the AAA.
Can I go next? I'll go next.
All right, hi. This is Jason Moriarty from Partners in Care Foundation, just listening in.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ana Zapata. I work for Neighborhood Legal Services, Los Angeles, and I'm a housing aid navigator, and I also work with seniors or elderly people or people with disability finding housing.
Thank you. Anyone else? If you'd also would prefer to leave that in the chat, that would be great too. And Also, I'll repeat Laura's message again. If you're using Mariella's name and that's not your name, if you wouldn't mind changing it for us, as Laura said, if you click in the box with your picture in the top right, there's 3 little dots. And if you click on that, you should have the option to rename yourself so that we can know who's in our meeting today and then record your input. So thanks everyone for joining us. I'll start with a quick overview of the project that we're working on. Then we'll talk a little bit about existing housing resources for older adults and then move into our discussion. So what we're working on is an assessment of fair housing, or AFH. And what that will do is analyze the fair housing landscape in the city of LA. So looking at whether everyone has access to housing that is suitable for them, free from unlawful discrimination. We'll also look at how well people are able to access different community resources and opportunities depending on where they live. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, requires any city or county that receives grant funds from HUD for community development or affordable housing to complete studies like this every 5 years.
Hey, how are you? Good for you.
So we are working on that required study. And additionally, as of 2018, the state of California also requires public agencies, including cities, counties, and housing authorities, to prepare fair housing assessments. So generally, when we talk about fair housing, we're talking about everyone's right to participate in the housing market. So to own, sell, purchase, or rent the housing of their choice without fear of unlawful discrimination. That includes things like renting or buying a home, but also things like obtaining insurance, having access to home loans, having fair property appraisals, kind of other parts that go along with where you choose to live and how you experience living there. Under the Federal Fair Housing Act, everyone is protected from housing discrimination based on race or ethnicity, color, religion, national origin, sex, family status, and disability. Additionally, the state of California has a series of laws that expand fair housing protections to include several more protected classes that you see listed there. So they include marital status, age, which we'll be talking about today, ancestry, immigration status, language, sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, genetic information, source of income, veteran or military status, occupation, and other arbitrary factors. In addition to what's on the slide, the city of LA also has laws that protect housing access based on language, based on citizenship status, and employment status. So you can see kind of a range of housing protections, including several that go beyond what is protected nationally. HUD also has what is called an Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing, or AFH regulation, which calls on cities and counties to take meaningful actions to overcome segregation, foster inclusive communities, reduce affordable housing needs, and address barriers that reduce access to opportunity. So when we're talking about access to opportunity, that would be things like good schools, good jobs, transit, grocery stores, healthcare facilities, and a clean environment. Cities need to look at whether everyone has equal access to neighborhoods with these types of opportunities, regardless of their race, ethnicity, or other protected class. Under the Trump administration, HUD pared back its AFFH rule, essentially suspending its requirement to do a fair housing study. But then early in the Biden administration, the rule was reinstated, so requiring up-to-date fair housing studies. And then last month, HUD released a new proposed rule that would further define what those studies should contain. So that's something we're keeping track of as we're working on this project too. You can see that kind of at the national level, the fair housing landscape has been evolving. We'll be looking at several components in our study. So demographics and patterns related to segregation, integration, and income. We'll be looking at some of those opportunities that I mentioned, things like schools, jobs, transit, environmental health. And we'll also consider whether affordable housing need varies by protected class. We'll look at public housing, tax credit developments, and other types of affordable housing. So what's available and where is it located? And then finally, the study will include a summary of key fair housing issues, along with goals and strategies to address them over the next 5 years. And community input will be a big part of the plan, including what we'll hear from you today. So in addition to meeting those state and federal requirements, the AFH will also be important as local leaders make decisions about housing policies and resources. It will be built on community input and is one way to voice opinions to city and HACLA leadership. We'll be looking to advance past fair housing efforts, including the city's recently completed housing elements and its previous AFH from 2018. As I said, what will ultimately come out of this is an action-oriented strategy that will impact city decisions about how to spend grant funds for housing, community development, and homelessness. So the strategies will help shape projects, programs, and policies by the city and HACLA. The final plan will be adopted by City Council and HACLA leadership and represent their commitment to implement activities that expand fair housing and stop future housing discrimination. Here's a quick outline of kind of our timeline for the project. So we are right now in the very end of that second bubble there. So doing community engagements, meetings like this one. We did a series of stakeholder meetings and community meetings over the past few months. We'll have more opportunities for engagements over the summer as we're have some preliminary findings to present and strategies for feedback and refinement, and then a public comment period later in the summer, all leading up to adoption by City Council and HACLA in the fall. So at this point, I'd like to turn it back over to the city just to talk a little bit about some of their existing programs that serve older adults in LA.
Yes, hi, Nancy Twum again. I'll start off by speaking about the city's handiworker program. So the city has and this program is administered by the Los Angeles Housing Department, also known as LHD. The handiworker program uses licensed general contractors for minor home repairs and accessibility improvements. And these are available at no cost to eligible homeowners and renters. This program is to help seniors and those living with disabilities to live independently and to be able to age in place. And so the purpose of the program is to be able to help correct any safety or health hazards within the home. There are a number of different eligibility requirements, such as the property must be located in the city of Los Angeles. All applicants have to meet a certain household income limit. And then all applicants must be a minimum age of 62 and or living with a permanent disability. So either one or both, under that they can qualify. And there's also, there's certain services that can be provided with these particular repairs and installations and things of that nature happen within the home. So some examples are wheelchair ramps, installing wheelchair ramps, handrails, grab bars, smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, if there's any alterations that need to be made to the toilets, to faucets, things of that nature. And so there are a number of things that are required in terms of applying for this program. proof of age, proof of disability. If the person is wanting to apply under that particular criteria, they need to provide that proof. And then proof of income. Also, if the applicant is a homeowner, they need to provide proof of home ownership. So there's certain documents that need to be provided. And then proof of residency. So recent utility bill, and then also some other income verification information would be required as well, like rental income, retirement accounts, things of that nature. So that is the Handy Worker program that we have in place. What I'll do is I will put a link to this program in the chat. This will be the link to the web page, and you can take a look at that. And if you have any questions, there will also be a contact number for our department for the staff to be able to assist you and provide you with more details about the Handy Worker program. And I guess I will turn it over, maybe Crystal, if you want to talk about the department's accessible housing program.
Yes, thank you, Nancy. So I am with the LAHD, the Accessible Housing Program known as ACHP. What ACHP does is we have approximately 800 developments that are part of our program, and we ensure that those developments are compliant with all policy requirements. We have a website registry where you can go and search for affordable housing that is open and available and sign up for a wait list for accessible units. If the development is part of the ACHP covered developments, then we ensure that any reasonable accommodations or modifications that are needed are in fact being implemented by the property. The property is expected to pay for the cost of those accommodations and modifications. And in the event that those needs are not being met, we have a grievance program where you can submit a grievance and we will reach out to the property, work together with the individual as well as the property, engage in the interactive process to ensure that any needs that relate to accessibility are being met. I can go ahead and put a link to our website in the chat here. And you can get more information on how to sign up to obtain affordable housing, as well as you go to the tenant resources. There is information there on how you could file a grievance if you are having any issues with your landlords.
Thanks, Crystal. And I believe Ann Lynch with the Housing Authority was going to provide some information about their programs as well.
Hi, yeah, so we're primarily, housing provider. And so I put in the chat before this started the link to our asset management website. They have senior properties, primarily Section 8 multifamily, project-based buildings. Each one has their own wait list. And from that link, you can select the senior buildings, and then from there you get the listing of the properties. A couple of the sites, I'm not sure which ones, do have HUD-funded senior social coordinator positions to kind of help with activities and stuff for the residents of those properties. For our public housing program, we don't have dedicated specific senior properties necessarily anymore. Those all got moved into the asset portfolio, and they're project based. There's 30 units worth of one building. That's public housing still, but that's under private management. And within our public housing, we do, as our resident services initiatives do try and, coordinate activities as possible within the communities to target, seniors for activities and stuff. But primarily we're housing, and the bulk of our housing targeted specifically for seniors is within our asset portfolio. I know there's some other city folks there too.
Thanks, Anne.
Did you not hear me at all?
We
Oh my
heard you.
goodness, seriously? You heard
We
me?
heard you. Thank you,
Okay.
Anne. We heard you.
It was just silence. I got worried there.
No, sorry, I was looking for, I couldn't get my unmute button. But
Okay.
Anne. Well, so that was a quick overview of some of the resources that are available at the city and from HACLA as well. And I think something we can talk more about as we get into our discussion. Before we do that, just a little bit of an overview. If you want to use that raise hand button when you have a comment, we have a pretty small group, but I think that will still help us keep track of who has a comment. If anyone is joining us by phone, you can use *6 to mute or unmute and *9 to raise your hand. And then lastly, if your box still doesn't say your name, if you can click on your picture in that top right corner and use the button with the 3 dots. Once you click that, you should see a drop-down menu that has the option of renaming yourself. So you can make sure that it has your correct name there. But with that, I'm going to stop the screen share, and that way we can all see each other. Turn on my video as well, and get started with our discussion. So the first question that I had is just thinking about the senior population in LA. What types of housing needs or barriers do you see most commonly? And as we know that the senior population is likely to grow just given demographic trends, kind of how will those needs increase or change as we have more older adults? Yeah, Crystal.
One of the things that we're seeing a lot is technology. Technology is a really big struggle we're finding for a lot of seniors. They have difficulties with, seeing, changing batteries and smartphones, and, having to pay rent online. Washers and dryers now use apps and instead of coins. And just as we get more and more technology based, it becomes more and more difficult for them. That's a really big issue.
Okay, so not just kind of in the application process, but even once you're living somewhere, more apps to deal with and things like that.
Yeah, and it includes the application process. So many applications are submitted online, and documents need to be uploaded, income verification, and then figuring out how to do that. And they just struggle with all aspects of technology.
Okay, thanks. Laura?
Good morning. That was an excellent one. I wanted to talk about, how do we preserve older people staying in their existing housing? And so my recommendation is for us to consider how do we partner with our area agencies on aging to extend case management type support so that we identify people earlier. I also think that we need to coordinate our senior housing resources in some kind of a structured way. We really have nowhere to talk to each other about what is needed and what is available, and so we're all hunting, for lists, for availability, for all that. That should not be happening in a place like LA. We should have a way of connecting with each other in a very intentional way. And so what I will offer is that our department is willing to work with you guys on figuring something like that out, because I think that's critical as the population is going to just blow up in the next, 8 years, that we have to have structural approaches to how we're going to, understand housing resources, housing availability, and ongoing housing needs.
Thanks, Laura. When you talk about kind of a improved structure and more coordination, do you think, would that be something like a website or listserv where people are able to find housing, or is it more a matter of like improved communication and maybe meeting?
Yeah. I'm thinking more like a senior housing coordinating council where we can bring the executives from, HACLA, Housing Authority, county departments. I've been talking to some of the leaders in the different housing entities, and all of us have the same need, which is we need to be able to communicate with each other on a timely basis so that we know when issues are coming up and how to resolve them in real time. So that's kind of the thought that I was having, more like a coordinating task force, a rapid response team, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but we need people in a room that have access to resources, understand them, and actually can make decisions in real time. So that's, I hope.
Well, yeah, thanks for clarifying that. And it looks like you had some support from some of your colleagues as well for that one. Yeah, Anna?
Yeah, similar to Laura and similar to Crystal, I agree with them. I mean, it's just having access to for senior affordable housing or accessible senior housing. I mean, it's ridiculous at this point. I think we need a better improvement, a better coordination too, especially those seniors in need. It breaks my heart to tell one of my clients who are about to become homeless, well, here you go, we're going to put you on the wait list, figure it out in the meantime. I don't believe any senior citizen or non-citizen should end up in the streets. I don't understand that. I think we need to work better on that, especially in the city of LA. I mean, it's just, to me, makes no sense, especially those who have worked really hard in everything, and especially now with this SSI or with disability not providing with enough funds to just find something on housing. And also, in addition with what Crystal said too, it's just is regarding the technology and everything. Many of my clients can't really work that technology nowadays, and it's very hard for them, or even to apply for these places. And then the thing, another issue I have, yes, maybe we can put our clients in a wait list, but that takes years, and in years a lot of things can happen, whether they change a phone number or anything, that a lot of times don't even get that client that as a affordable housing. So yeah.
Okay. Sure, people kind of getting lost on the wait list if you don't have a way to contact them. Thank you. Molly?
Yeah, thank you. So I think those are all great ideas, and one of the things that I would also love to see, kind of in terms of sort of having a place where people can see all the different housing resources, because sometimes even specific cities have their own programs that others might be able to qualify for, but you have to know that one little niche city, and that is being lost, I think, if we're not including, kind of taking stock and inventory about that too.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and maybe goes back to the importance of some coordination and having that information. Sounds like not just for the city, but maybe for the region as well, what might be available in other cities.
Yes.
And I wanted to go back to the comments earlier related to homelessness, particularly for seniors, because I think that is something that we heard in some of the groups that we spoke to specifically related to homelessness, was kind of that urgent need for seniors. And just what you were saying, kind of how difficult it is not to have a resource to someone that's on the verge of homelessness. So I think that's definitely a need that we've heard throughout this process too. But Kathleen, go ahead.
Thank you. I was thinking a bit about this coordination, and one of the things that I always dream of or wonder about is some kind of coordination between the various low-income senior housing sites. So we have a lot of great organizations, Menora Housing, Telecu, there's different sites, but they don't talk to each other. And so it also speaks to this situation with the senior is in Pasadena here, we give them the list and we say, you have to call each of these places and you have to get on their wait list. And then heaven forbid you like move or you change your phone number, then you have to call each of these places. And so I feel like similar to how we have the coordinated entry system regarding homelessness services. I've always thought, oh, if we could have something like that for the low-income senior housing sites, of course, they would all have to be, interested in that. But that's always something that I wonder about. And then the other thing, sort of just as a problem or a challenge for seniors, is actual physical environment. A lot of people are living in apartments that they've lived in for a long time that are on the second or third floor with only stairs. And I've heard cases of people who haven't left their apartments in a long time. They can't get their medical care. And so I don't know if I necessarily have an answer for that, but that is a big challenge. And even organizations who have been wanting to put in maybe like a stair lift or chair lift or something, it's just not safe. It's just like physically, logistically can't work.
Okay. So I guess in those cases, those are folks that maybe end up looking for another unit. Does that sound?
Yeah, and so then they're kind of put back into this cycle of like, okay, well, how do they look for another unit? It's all on the internet. Or they had, rent control there, and then can they find something affordable? And I don't know the answer, but it's a bit challenging.
Okay, but kind of properties where it's not really possible to make them
to age in place. It's really hard to age in place because the property is not safe.
Okay. Yeah, Laura, I see your hand.
Kathleen just reminded me, we don't have a way of responding when crisis occurs in one of our high-rise buildings. We had that not too long ago in a couple of buildings where the elevators went down, and it cost us thousands and thousands of dollars to respond because we had, a couple hundred seniors that were literally landlocked, in the 15th floor and couldn't walk down to get, groceries and things like that. So we need to come up with strategies where we know what response is available. We're creating responses on the fly, yet we know elevators are going to break down. I mean, how do we not have responses for that? So, but in my role, I've now had to face that a couple of times where people call you and they go, can you get here now? You have 250 seniors that are in jeopardy in a building. We need to intentionally start thinking that if we have an aging population in a building and something happens with the mechanics of the building, that these people are going to be at risk, and so that's why I was thinking that we need some kind of a way of coordinating this information, because otherwise we're always responding in a crisis.
Okay, some coordination, and sounds like some proactive plans for what to do if or when an elevator goes out or other issues like that. Okay. Crystal?
Yeah, just to address some of the concerns for Kathleen's concern regarding the aging in place and being on a higher floor, the individuals do have a right to request to be transferred within that building to a first floor unit based on a disability, mobility, so that they can stay within that building and get that next available unit. If it's disability related, they do have a priority for that. And for Laura's concerns regarding the elevator, there is, under the fair housing laws, there is a requirement for these properties to have an emergency evacuation plan, and to address those individuals that have disability, mobility related needs, whether that be relocating them temporarily to a hotel, to another floor on the property. They should be having a plan in place where they're going in there, checking on those particular individuals, providing them food, water, medication. That is really something that the property is required to do. And I think part of this is educating the property and everybody else as to what those requirements are.
Sure. Yeah, I think it sounds like there could likely be some need for greater education or publicity, or particularly for property owners around kind of what those requirements are, and maybe how they might be able to work with some service providers if there are emergencies like that. Okay. Thank you, Crystal, for providing that. Yes, Anna.
Sorry, I'm just very passionate about this subject. Yeah, also, again, or even like a moving assistance program too, when they move to one place and another, because obviously our clients, most of our clients can't really move their stuff to one unit to another. That's really important to start looking into. And then another, I mean, again, I have this client in mind a lot. I have this client in mind a lot, and even possibly storage services for those who don't have a housing and just put on the wait list too.
Okay. Storage service for people who are waiting for housing. The moving assistance program that you mentioned, is that something that exists now, or that's something that is a need?
I'm aware that DPS, sorry about that, I have to lower my voice, but I'm aware DPSS sometimes can work with moving assistance, but not everybody qualifies. I know us with Neighborhood Legal Services, we working with HRC, and they can help our clients with moving assistance. But again, that is not a program that is for the long run, it's temporary.
Okay, thanks. Maybe let me ask another question. So are there particular housing types, so like physical types of housing, that there's a greater need for in LA to serve residents as they age? So maybe units that are built according to universal design standards, or accessible units large enough for families, or seniors that might have a live-in aid, or other types of units that you feel like there's a need for more of this type of in the city. Yeah, Laura. Oh,
trying to find the button to do my hand. Thank you. I think I know that city had a very successful accessory dwelling unit program that is no longer, I don't think it's funded anymore. I would like to ask that that be reconsidered. That's a viable, cost-effective, and socially responsible way of addressing the incredible housing shortage in our region. I also wanted to, important that we start looking at universal design or apartment buildings that can be retrofitted very quickly for somebody experiencing a disability. I know that all that is off the shelf already. It's not even going to cost that much money to the builders. So that's definitely a need that we have. But what we need is affordable housing like tomorrow. And we keep, kind of kicking the can down the road, and it's not helpful with the population here now.
Okay. Thanks. Kathleen?
The other thing I just wanted to say is, I guess, based on, we at Senior Care Network have the assisted living waiver program. And so, that is a path for housing for some people. And one of the requests, the most often requests that we get are, can I have my own room? And can I bring my pet?
Okay.
So I think of seniors and kind of their desires. And so, I wonder, I can't, speak for all of them, but, maybe having, even if the unit is slightly smaller, but it's your own unit, it makes a difference than sharing with someone else. And if you can have a small pet, or there's some way to, allow us to keep our furry friends, that's important to them.
Yeah, sure. I think that's great input. Anyone else? Do these sound right? Are there other needs that you see? Yeah, Kimberly.
I wanted to comment three pieces. One, just as far as the barriers, so just stepping back a minute, I wanted to bring up if there has been any connections with like basically high schools and like YMCA as far as youth groups. There's so many active-minded youth that are out there wanting to make a difference, on top of the fact that just getting the information into the hands of the youth who are very accessible with technology, and then being able to share that information either with their own family members or with individuals in the neighborhood or just in different groups. And so really trying to bridge some of that gap and really use our public institutions and the groups within those that are really civically engaged and actively minded as youth in government, Model United Nations, those type of programs. The second piece is, are we looking at, just because bringing up the idea of these long wait lists and what we were able to do during COVID and house individuals, and I know we did that on a large scale and there was a lot of funding for that, but really looking at, we were able to make a huge impact during COVID. And so what are some ways that we can either reduce some of the red tape to be able to do something similar to that, or just look at like, what did we do that we could replicate, and what are the barriers, like what are we, why can't we do that in non sort of emergency times? And then the third piece that, well, actually two more, I'm so sorry, I just wanted to, it's one thing I want to just reinforce is the piece about, connectivity that Dr. Laura Trejo brought up. I think that is crucial for us to be able to have places, just even when I'm just out in the streets on my own, wanting to be able to, hand a card to someone, with that has like, go to this one website or call this one number, and like, here's where you can get, the services that you need, whether that be housing or transportation or whatever it may be. I know that's a big ask, but I did just want to say, I do think it's crucial to have that ability to be able to connect with others that are like-minded. And then the very last thing I wanted to mention is the piece about pets and family. We need shelters, we need places that are temporary, not as well as permanent, that allow older adults that there are many individuals that live with their grandchildren, or they live with their children, and if they're getting into housing, there's certain requirements that they're not allowed to continue to live with those individuals. And I feel like that is so important for social and health overall for all of the generations that are engaged in that. And so really looking at, like, why are we requiring that if it's a senior housing that only seniors can live in those buildings? And then the pet piece. I just wanted to, I know that's something that is really hard for seniors, that they, whether that's in, a situation of abuse or just, in general, wanting to be able to have their pets with them as well. Thank you so much for letting me have time.
Yeah, thank you for all of those comments. Your point kind of about possibility to engage youth to assist with overcoming some of those technology barriers is a really good one. I think not something that we've heard too much before. So glad to have that piece of input, and certainly the others as well. And I might build a little bit on what you said. So you mentioned, if there was one, like I could give out a card that had information about where to go to find housing or services. So this is not necessarily that, but what Krista was talking about earlier, the city's affordable and accessible housing registry, which includes housing developments in this that have city funds in them, that are affordable and have accessible housing units within them. Is that something that you all are mostly familiar with? Do you use that very often, or how does that seem like it's working in your opinion?
Hi, this is Mariela. Sadly, we have not been very successful in actually being able to successfully connect seniors with those units. So there's not enough units at this time, and it's just going to continue. The need is going to just continue to grow. Regarding the accessibility, and your I know you're talking about probably, or I'm assuming that you're talking about units that are already are going to be accessible. But a lot of our seniors who have been in low income or affordable housing, they've been there for 20 years. They're outgrown the needs of that apartment. So if anything, they should be like a project, but they would retrofit them as part of the program to keep them safe and not wait for a request. Because by definition, you know, the physical needs are impacted. And it's done as part of the system, not as you got to fill out this form and you have to call in. Because the reality is that seniors don't report it and they just make do.
Okay.
So if it can become part of their periodic updates, if it's defined by age, and make those units, because yes, you're talking about building new units or those units that have been built that are already accessible, but there hasn't been a systematic address, all those older units that by definition, the older adult is already just older and they're not accessible. They're unfit.
Okay. So a proactive approach to retrofitting some units that older folks are living in and have been living in. Does that sound right to what you're?
Well, but the request would be for all older adults that are already living in 20-year-old units, and that technically they're just probably even unsafe for them.
Okay. You mentioned that the way it is now, a lot of seniors don't want to ask for that or don't ask for that, don't report. Do you think that that is because they don't know that they don't know that it's an option to ask for things to be retrofitted, or they know about it but just aren't interested in asking or kind of don't want to bother type of thing?
I think it would be a combination of the property managers, the system, the senior, the unavailability of coordinating services, language barrier. I think it's a collection of all these situations. So you may address one and you still have the deficiency.
Some others. Okay, thanks. Yeah, Laura, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, thank you, Mariela, for bringing such an important issue up. I also think that if you think about it, as all of us are aging, we're not self-aware of how we're adapting to the environment. It kind of surprises the hell out of most of us when we wake up one day and we go, I can't do that anymore. That is not something that happens every day that we're self-aware of. And so I think that Mariela's challenge to us is, how are we being proactive? If you were 50 when you went into community housing and you're now 70, is it working the same for you? She's telling us it can't, it's not possible. But would that individual be self-aware enough? Because remember, they've been modifying their environment to adjust. I've walked into enough senior housing to tell you what you see, that people are so creative to modify their environment, not necessarily in a safe way, which is what Mariela's trying to remind us, but they're doing it because they need to make it work in order to stay there. And so what we need to do is look at all types of housing when somebody of a particular age threshold lives there, and think about how is that housing still safe, and what can we do with Handiwork or with the other programs to enhance the capability of that person to stay independent longer.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, Kimberly.
I was just going to add one last piece to that. Is I think there's a generational mindset of self-reliance, right? Like, I can do this on my own. Like, I don't want to impose on anyone. I don't want to ask for help. I am capable. And I think that ties into what both Mariela and Dr. Trejo were saying. But I think then sort of adds another piece to that, is that ability to know, it's okay to ask for help. And that is not a negative thing.
Yeah, Kimberly, thanks. So maybe another factor that kind of goes into that list of things that Mariela mentions that are reasons folks might not be asking for these types of services. Thinking about kind of how you would, so if this was the goal to kind of be retrofitting or addressing kind of any deficiencies for, you know, folks who, like you're saying, maybe moved in when they're 50 and now it's been 20 years and they're facing some need for some changes in their unit. Who would be the one kind of identifying that? Would that be a property manager? Would that be a, you know, a service agency that they're working with? Is there, just trying to think of how that might be implemented and wondering if there's ideas that you have.
So I remember.
Why don't you start, Marielle, and then we can go to Laura.
Oh, okay, thanks. So it depends. So for affordable housing and then public housing. So for public housing, we're just you're just funders, right? Or LAHC is just a funder. So it depends on their role. The other one, it's affordable housing. So the partners are different. The responsibilities and expectations are different. Those are the only two systems that I'm familiar with. So those coordinations would have to take shape from where they're coming from.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So it kind of depend on what program folks were in or housing assistance that they're getting. Okay. Laura?
Well, you were asking what would be the dissemination approach? And I would say, you know, similar to Handy Worker, I'm familiar with that program. I know it works well. They provide contracts to community-based organizations that do the work on behalf of the client that goes and does the assessment and the, you know, coordinates all that. So they're trusted entities and communities. I would recommend, you know, that could be a way if there was a grant opportunity for community-based agencies that, you know, want to do this work. I think you would find that there are organizations that want to do this work. And what's been missing for many, many years is funding. Okay. To be able to actually do it. It hasn't been for a lack of understanding or desire to do it. It's just like there's not money prioritized for older people to have these retrofitting opportunities.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's a good point that a lot of times there are folks that are willing to do that if there's money to do it. So let's see. Yeah, Kimberly.
Would a piece of addressing sort of at the root of the issue be about actually building it into the policies for landlords, regardless of, you know, accessibility or whether it's low income or not, but specifically for those particular types of units that they are just required on sort of, because I think what I heard Mariella say is that it's about like just doing it every, you know, I don't know, 5 years, every 10 years. I don't know enough about it to know how often it would be required, but have it be a part of actually the structural policy of being a landlord. I mean, I know maybe that's a big ask, but I was just trying to answer your question.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good thought. So maybe that landlords might be required to, however many, like you were saying, 5 years or 10 years, if residents have lived there that long, let them know that there's an option for retrofitting or making improvements. Let's see. Maybe, so one of the things that we've heard in a lot of other meetings is kind of this need for one website that has information about all affordable housing units. And I think there's maybe some interest in seeing how the affordable and accessible housing registry could be adapted to be more useful. It sounds like from what we heard today that it's maybe not that useful now because there's just not enough available units on it. So maybe you're not going to go there and spend time looking for something because there's not likely to be much. Are there other types of improvements that could be made to that website if the city was thinking of kind of how could we expand this? Are there ideas that you have of ways that could be improved? Yeah, go ahead, Anna.
I don't have an idea. That what I can say is, once again, and I'm gonna keep repeating it, I don't think a senior citizen should become homeless in order to get faster services for housing. It's already bad, the stuff they're going through and adapting to new housing and stuff like that. I hate that. I don't understand why we have to go to that extreme. And there has to be a better way to transfer them from one place to another. And again, I mean, I just still don't understand why do they have to become homeless to get faster services.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And we have on our contacts as part of this, we'll be talking with LASA later in the process. So I think that's definitely something we can bring up then, some ways to address senior homelessness. So
Yeah, and if I can just jump in, I agree in terms of that being a criteria that needs to be met in order for services, to be provided. It doesn't make sense. Like what we find and what we hear is it's a lot of it is dependent upon the actual funding source. So if federal funding sources, for example, they do require for that client or that participant to be homeless in order to receive services, because of that's how the funding source is structured, unfortunately. And so you have that where you have organizations that are receiving those type of funding sources with those requirements. And so if they're receiving funding sources with those particular requirements, they're following along with with that particular criteria. It doesn't make sense. And I think that's something that, we need to think about in terms of fixes, legislative fixes, regulatory fixes, in terms of what these programs that are being funded at the federal level. And how can we make those changes so it does not require for a senior, and even in some cases, non-seniors must be considered homeless in order to receive certain housing placement services. And so that is, definitely an issue that many providers state, because it's a matter of how do I provide services? How do I provide assistance to someone who's not necessarily declared homeless, but perhaps at risk of homelessness or could become homeless, right? And that is a huge issue. So yes, as Melissa said, we'll be having a discussion with LASA hopefully soon, and can really talk further to them about that. LASA is a recipient of a number of different government funding sources, and one of them is also federal funding sources. So hopefully we can talk to them about that, because we know that's an ongoing issue, and it is definitely a huge barrier to be able to provide services to those who are in need.
yeah, thanks, Nancy. Let's see, we have a row of hands up. Molly, I might go with you first. You're the first box I see.
Oh, I'm that person today. My mute button on. What I was just going to say was one of the things that I've been trying to get changed is related to the issue that Nancy mentioned, where you have to have you get certain points for different to get into housing, and it is related to how close you are to being homeless or you are homeless. And one of the things you get points for is if you're in a domestic violence situation and if you flee that situation, you will become homeless. So you actually may have your head on a pillow, but only because you're maintaining a relationship that is a violent one, right? Mm-hmm. So the same thing could be said for elder abuse. but that is not, elder abuse is not included. And that's a really easy fix. And would help meet some of that criteria. I've talked with LA City Attorney's Office about it. They think it's a pretty easy fix. But we need it, this issue to be amplified so that the form can be updated, and then training on that, because that's also, an issue is that even some folks don't know that the DV, that situation with domestic violence is allowable for that type of housing.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And if we can amplify that through this, then certainly we can. Thanks, Molly. Let's see, Laura.
So going back to your question about, what could we do with the website? Part of the problem is that everybody has a website and we all have to chase everybody's website. So my challenge to the city of Los Angeles is get everybody in the room and get one website for senior housing in the region of Los Angeles. That would actually be a game changer. Because otherwise we all have to figure out how to navigate everybody's website to try to get our clients the services they need. And that's, in the time of technology, that shouldn't even be required. So that's my request to you, that it shouldn't be multiple websites. It should be one senior housing website for the region of Los Angeles. The other one is, I want to recommend, Nancy, that when you meet with LAHSA, please ask for Jean Galeana to be in the room. She is the aging expert, the subject matter expert on aging issues at LAHSA. So if she's not in the room, you're not going to really have the person that actually gets this. And so I would recommend that you please request that she be made available to you as part of this discussion. Jean's been wrestling with these issues for a number of years, and she has already identified the problems with the coordinated entry system assessment in terms of how it does not support older adults. And so that's another area that we need to look at. How will we advocate with LAHSA to update and make their instruments age appropriate, because currently they are not.
Thank you. Yes, we're in contact with Jean, and we're trying to actually coordinate with her for this meeting with the key LAHSA staff. So we are in contact with Jean, and she's actually been part of our other assessment of fair housing sessions that we've had. And we're glad that we're able to have had her. So we are working with Jean. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Let's see, Kathleen.
So I think I am on the website. I will admit that I have not used this before. So I went there, I think, and it had, and so I was, you're asking like, how does the website work? I mean, to, I think, an earlier point from Crystal, I don't think that many seniors can manage this on their own. I mean, even me myself, and I'm like super savvy. I'm like, okay, where am I looking? What am I doing? What happens here? And most of these are waiting lists. Nothing is happening right now. So I don't know. I do know, I know a fair number of people that are in like a whole other space of user experience. This is like a very important part of IT and tech. And I think that could be valuable here. Figuring out if we do have this website, if it really is like the only way, can we make it senior friendly? And it would look very different than this, I would think.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Kathleen. And Mariela.
Hi. So, I was actually going to follow up on Laura's point about the website, one-point entry. It's awesome. But I also, like Kathleen, went to the website because I wanted to give you right now feedback. And at first, the list are PDFs. That is not appropriate in anywhere. Because what was current, a year ago or a month ago, it may have a day delay, but because we're talking about homelessness, we should have an updated function. So it should be an interactive, when somebody, just like when you go to your bank, you write a check and, the money's out, this the units, they're not available. Then, because if you look at the current, if you want to look at the available properties, it's a PDF. And then what I was so disturbed was the one, I looked at the one for everybody, and that one is, which I was pretty impressed. It was dated March 20th. I think it was like March 20th, 2023. So I was really impressed because that was a week ago. But when I looked into the senior ones, the senior has a July 2022.
Okay.
I mean,
Sure. So obviously not up to date.
and it should not be on PDF. There should be a system that tracks real available units, because at the end of the day, we provide this information and we're just sending our seniors with transportation difficulties and everything, and they go on a wild goose chase, and there is zero. They should be, that information should be as real time as can get, a couple of days, because otherwise it has happened to me many times. They go to these locations and there isn't any availability. And also the currency of the and it just tells me what they think about seniors. And this happens all the time. These are, and not just for housing, but for anything, here's a list, here's the information for everyone, and the seniors is always left behind. So sorry.
Let me let Crystal, I think she may have some information for you.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Are you on the Accessible Housing Registry website? Because it is live. There are no PDFs to be downloaded. You go in, it's difficult. I think it's difficult for a senior, to be honest. I'm like Kathleen, I'm fairly technologically savvy, but it's difficult. But you do go in and the first thing you see is search for properties, and you can type in those properties, and what comes up, the first properties that will come up will be those that are open for lottery. And then it goes down based on wait list, and it identifies whether it's got an open conventional wait list or an open accessible unit wait list. But the open for applications are the first ones that are on there, and they are all live. There's no PDFs of any kind. So I'm not sure if you're on the right website.
I actually went first. I know that's affordable housing. I actually went for the HACLA first, the HACLA website. And that it's showing me right now PDFs for current assets. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably a different website than the city's
That's
one.
the one, that Ann shared, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that was shared, and I accessed it because that's the one that was shared for this group, for this meeting.
Yeah, so that is, so we hear we hear your feedback, which is great. So we do have a HACLA staff person here who's is also taking notes, I'm sure, in regards to that in your feedback. So that is the Housing Authority site. And then we have the LHD site, which is the Accessible Housing Program, the one that Crystal spoke about. So there are various lists, as we talked about, the issue there. But in terms of, who maintains what is we understand is an issue. But we are taking back that feedback for HACLA.
Yeah, thanks, Nancy and Crystal. Let me maybe ask a slightly different question now. So one component of the housing study will look at how well residents are able to access different types of community resources. So things like transit, good jobs, a healthy environment, support services, and public facilities, parks, rec centers, things like that. What types of barriers do you see older adults face in accessing those types of resources? And are there ways the city could kind of improve folks' ability to access things like that? Yeah, Kimberly.
One of the things that I believe that some of the newer buildings are doing, especially buildings that are supported with funding from the federal or county level, is that they're putting an office actually in the building that is a one-stop shop that is for all different types of services, so that right there within a multi-unit facility, you have a location that is staffed by someone that is able to direct and know where to redirect or guide individuals that are in, not only in that building, but within that community. They can come in as well. So it's not just limited to those individuals that are in that particular building, whether it's low income, older adults, or individuals with disabilities, but then anybody who lives in that neighborhood as well can use that resource. And basically it's staffed to be able to provide that those all different types of resources.
Okay, so maybe an example of what's working well to help people connect with resources. Is that
what was the question? I'm so sorry.
no, that's great. I think if there are any barriers you see people facing, I think that's a pretty good example of overcome barriers to accessing resources. So
not knowing, because I think many older adults and individuals with disabilities just really don't know that the resources are out there unless they have connections with someone else, or they've been lucky enough to stumble upon them. And so I think having sort of just the resources go to them, because it feels like they're just not getting those resources. I mean, maybe television or radio ads. Again, I think it's about getting the word out there, because I just think a lot of it is them not knowing that the services are available.
okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, Mariella, I see your hand.
Yes, so language may be a barrier.
Okay. So resources kind of not being available in someone's language, is that? Okay. Anyone else?
Fear of immigration status. No, the sort of that trust in government for individuals that think if they go to receive services, somehow other services will be cut, or that they will be reported to ICE or to another organization.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's definitely a barrier that we understand that people may have in accessing some of those services. Yeah, Laura?
I think one of the opportunities that is here is for organizations to begin to proactively talk to each other and coordinate services, because that's not happening. Housing people don't know area agency on aging senior services exist. Senior service providers don't know housing resources very well, because that's not what they do. And so maybe one of the possibilities out of this plan is a real proactive engagement on behalf of housing towards the aging network, towards the community systems level people that are out there doing this every single day and being very frustrated. That would be, I think, an incredible leadership opportunity for the housing department to engage in.
Okay, thanks. So maybe going back a little bit to the point you made at the beginning of our discussion about some need for better coordination and engagement amongst housing and services. Thanks.
But this is also about proactively coordinating at the service level, the building, coordinators or whatever that are there, understanding what are the senior services available in the regional that they are serving. I used to do a lot of that work with senior housing managers. They would bring me in to do orientation for their building staff. They were shocked that they were surrounded by community-based support services. They literally were clueless, because that's not their world. They shouldn't have known that. But unless we actually proactively educate them, they don't know how to help the clients that are living in their buildings. All they see is something is terribly happening, and then we begin to talk about evicting them and sending them somewhere else. That's out of frustration and a lack of knowledge. So this is the opportunity to really more proactively start educating the building management staff about, where are the resources in the communities that we can reach out to, because they're waiting for the phone call. It's just they never get it.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Crystal?
Yes, first off, I 1000% agree with Laura. I mean, that is definitely something that we are seeing. And so one of the things that we're hearing a lot is communication as being a barrier, and not just in terms of, language or things like that, but just an understanding from the property staff on the unique difficulties that a senior citizen faces every day, and understanding if they're in a bad mood, what it took them just to get out of bed and get to shower and get downstairs to even talk to the property manager. And that some type of sensitivity training on property management staff on how to communicate with seniors and individuals that have disabilities, and just understanding the challenges and difficulties they have, as they start each day. And, much to what Laura was saying, just that communication and understanding of what's going on is going to help those, we need to evict them because they're difficult.
Yeah, thanks, Crystal. I think that's a really great point around maybe need for sensitivity training or kind of other training for property managers. I wanted to share, Jane left a comment in the chat too about going back to our question about housing types, the need for horizontal versus vertical living for seniors. So thinking about things like outdoor spaces, outdoor cafes, gardens, green space, access to water. I think that ties into this question a bit too about kind of access to healthy environments and a place where you're gonna, be able to thrive. So thanks for providing that there. Let's see, maybe before we close, is there anything that we haven't had a chance to talk about that you want to make sure we're including in the plan? And maybe particularly if there's anyone who hasn't had a chance to talk yet that would like to, feel free to share any last input you may have now. Yeah, Laura?
Well, what I wanted to recommend, if we're recommending our wishes, I'm going to recommend the wish. I think that our HACLA, the LA Housing Department, should have a full-time on-staff person that is leading this work, or a team of people that are leading understanding of an aging population and the implications on a housing environment. Because I think what you're hearing from all of us is there's a lot of work to be done. And my question is, who's supposed to be doing it? And so I think that, there comes a moment that you have critical mass needs. And so it's an issue of, only collaboration will only carry us so far. Somebody still has to have this as a job and begins to really bring us all into the room. So, so my request would be, are there ways that we can begin to advocate for, specialized staff that actually knows aging to work and be embedded in these organizations and move the needles forward? Because otherwise, we continue to be, we're going to be doing this in 10 years and going out, nothing happened. So that's my request.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Laura. And it looked like you had some agreements from your colleagues as well. I saw some clapping. Yes, Anna?
Melissa, you said you're going to be having a meeting. Can we be part of this meeting, or how does it work? Or is it a public meeting, or is it a private meeting?
Are you referring?
Bring this up? Sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry, finish your question.
Yeah, because you're going to bring this up to the table, but is that something that can go with the public, or is it a private meeting? How does it work?
So are you referring to the meeting we mentioned with LASA, or further meetings about this plan?
This plan.
Sure. So there will be quite a few more opportunities for public input. So we had a series of consultation meetings this month and gathered input from a lot of folks. And we're in the process of getting those on the project website. And I think that goes to a question that we had in the chat too about if there'd be recordings that we were able to kind of see the presentation. And those will be on the website, and you'll be able to see the input that we received from those consultation meetings. But in terms of kind of going forward with this plan, we are going to be working on a draft for a couple months. And then in the summer, we will have some more meetings similar to this. So if you registered for this meeting, we'll have your email address and let you know how you can stay involved with it. If you did not register for this meeting, but you got it through someone else, so maybe if you didn't have your original name when you first logged in, if you want to leave your email in the chat, we can add you to our stakeholder list as well, so we can continue to keep you informed about the project. But in the summer, we'll have meetings where we kind of present, here's what we've heard, and here are the strategy ideas. And, you know, you can tell us like, yes, this reflects what I said and looks good, or you can tell us, you know, you missed one, or we should change this. There's going to be some time to kind of workshop those strategies with all our stakeholders. And then after that, we'll do another version of the draft, and then that's going to be available for a public comment period. So again, you can take another look at it and give us suggestions of how to improve things. And then eventually that will be what goes towards City Council. So there's still opportunities to provide input. And actually, I'm going to share my screen again because.
Alyssa, while you're sharing your screen, can I ask a question? How many other aging focused opportunities are you coordinating? Have you had? Because if I'm looking at this group, and as amazing as these leaders are in the room, we are not representative of the aging network right now. And I am incredibly uncomfortable if this is it. And so that's my question to you, you know, because you're responsible for one of the largest concentrations of older people in the country in the city of LA. So I don't think one of is going to be reflective in the input that you're seeking.
Sure. So we did have some representatives from, I mean, including Mariella and some other folks participate in some of the meetings that we had over the last month. So you could see kind of that discussion that was on the website. We also did some focus groups, so with residents, and in those cases had an eye to make sure that we are including some seniors to kind of get input from folks who are, you know, directly impacted by housing, fair housing issues or affordable housing needs. Nancy, I don't know if you have anything you want to add there.
Oh, yes, I was just gonna say, in terms of additional sessions, if there's perhaps standing meetings or something you have coming up that's scheduled that you want to have perhaps an AFH discussion to take place, we can do that and find out when that's available. We're really relying on also the contacts that you all have and being able to ensure we're connecting with the right organizations, those who are older themselves, and then also just allowing for them to even be part of the AFH process in itself, just in terms of being informed about what's happening with the development of our plan, development of our goals and strategies, and then eventually the commenting on the draft itself down the line. So being able to really get those types of contacts are also helpful, because you're right, everyone doesn't know about our work. That's the case with, you know, with anything that's being done, right? Everyone doesn't know, so we have to rely on the contacts that we have to be able to help spread that word. Hackler can't do it on their own, LHD can't do it on their own, and neither can Mosaic. So we are hoping that you can help with that. We also have a survey for residents to be able to complete and really speak to what their needs are, which is posted here. So we encourage you to tell people, and if we understand online is difficult, so hard copies can be made available if you let us know how many you need and by when, and how to get them to you. We can provide them. Then also if you need them in a particular language. So that's the other way in which we're getting feedback from folks. And there are other upcoming sessions that are going to take place, as mentioned, in terms of the development of this plan. So we want people to remain connected. So if there's people who should be aware of our work and or want to stay in contact, it will be good if they can email us and with requesting to be added to our contact list. So that email is lahd.afhpolicy@lacity.org. And we have a growing list of folks who are interested, in terms of residents, which does of course include many seniors. But if there's others, or perhaps there's other networks in which I'm sure we may not know about, please feel free to let them know, spread the word. And we're relying on all of you to also really be able to speak about this, because we do want to ensure that we're having the most effective community engagement process that we can have. And we don't know all of the connections, we just don't. So I do stress that any information and any contacts and any meetings you have or know about, let us know, and then we can be connected in that way. And thanks to Mariella for reaching out. This is what we wanted to happen in terms of being able to request additional sessions, right? And being able to even help with the actual list of folks to attend. And so with her help, we were able to have all of you here. And that's what we need. So we just hope that continues. And thank you for all of the valuable feedback and the input that you provided during today's session.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing that Nancy mentioned, this survey for residents, and definitely if there's ways you can help us get that out, let us, or we would appreciate that, and let us know if you need hard copies. There's also a survey for organization representatives. So if there are other folks that you wish had been here today that weren't able to make it, they can provide input through that survey as well.
Survey is going to, I think we have a month, right, left.
Right.
So in terms of that expiration date, I believe it's April 30th, is it?
That's right.
Yeah.
So. And Solomon, you've had your hands up for a while and you didn't get a chance to share anything. So if you'd like to share, please do. Oh, you're on mute. You'd have to, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. So I know it's almost time. I didn't want to miss this opportunity to say that we need this kind of discussion, consultation more often, particularly when it comes to housing. We know it's one of the top most needed services, and affordable housing, affordable housing is very much needed. And the aging population would contact their agencies, the AAAs, for all kinds of services, including housing. Now, the problem with housing is we don't have much information, and accessing information has been difficult. And I'm glad this meeting is happening and the study is going on. I would only recommend that keep us involved, and let's communicate, share information with us. Coordination is the key, really. I just wanted to add this emphasis. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a great note to end on too. That we hope you'll stay involved, and certainly if you didn't get this, if you didn't register for the meeting directly, please share your email address so that we can keep you involved, and feel free to share with as many of your colleagues or clients or friends, neighbors as possible. We really appreciate your help in getting the word out. Just a quick overview. So again, there's that link to the project website. And then if there's anyone else who wants to join the email address, just send an email there to that lahd.afhpolicy@lacity.org, and we'll add you to the list. And folks can also just send ideas there as well if there's things that they want to share and they're not able to join a meeting. So thank you so much, everyone, for your input today. It's been great. And we also really appreciate Mariella helping to organize this. So with that, I'll close the meeting and thanks everyone for their participation.